Hi everybody, Matt Bull here, MD of Action Coach in Loughborough, here with another episode of the Business Spotlight, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Penny Noble from Noble Events. How are you today, Penny?
I'm very well, thanks, Matt. Thank you very much for inviting me. Good to meet
Absolute,
you.
absolute pleasure, and good to meet you too. Good to meet you too. Just to get started, please just tell the viewers a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yes, so as described, I'm Penny Noble. I run a company called Noble Events Limited. We are a Leicestershire-based organisation. We set the office up. We'll be 15 years old in August. So we're celebrating our big birthday this year. Um, I was a hotelier by professions in my dim and distant past and went into events many, many years ago. Used to work for another large agency that was also based in Leicestershire. So I've kind of been around in the area for some time. Um, we run global events for all sorts of blue chip clients, specifically in the automotive and fintech industries, but very much focused on the luxury end of the business. So we tend to spend a lot of time looking after ultra high net worth individuals and traveling all over the world, mostly doing launches. It could be customer launches, press launches. We could be doing a conference, an incentive program, a training program, and all sorts of business to consumer activations like trade shows. So Cheltenham races, for example, that sort of thing, Southampton Boat Show, and so on. So it's a very varied type of work.
Excellent, excellent. So 15 years, you say, in business.
Yeah,
Congratulations, firstly.
thank
That's a
you.
great achievement. What was it then? Sort of, I suppose it was before 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, where you thought, I need to do something with it. What was that sort of either opportunity,
Um,
burning desire you had?
Well, actually, ironically, it was more like 20 plus years ago because this is my second company. I actually started another business which was also based in Leicestershire just over 20 years ago with my partner, and we ran a small event management company then, and then eventually he and I went our separate ways, and so I started all over again at the beginning of the recession. So, what made me do that? Honestly, I was working for one of the biggest agencies in the country at the time, doing very, very well. Business was excellent. It was a brilliantly organized, run company, I suppose, for want of a better word. But I felt as though I probably could do more myself for my own job satisfaction to a large extent. I felt I could offer more to a business startup where I could bring people on board to help grow them within the industry. I felt I'd delivered everything I could within the organisation. I had I was a director, sat on the board, but I didn't have any equity in the business, and so there was no real opportunity for me to, make a living long term, or a proper living long term. So I decided to bite the bullet and go it alone, which was some say brave, some say stupid, but here I am all those years later, having survived a recession and COVID. So yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. And what is it particularly about events or the hospitality industry that sort of excites you or inspired you so much?
The job satisfaction is absolutely insane. When you deliver an event and you deliver an event well, which thankfully the vast majority of ours are, the adrenaline rush is extreme, and I found that whole benefit of being able to deliver something that the client was delighted with and the customers were delighted with. I just got such a kick out of it that I, I I don't know. I can't. It's hard to describe sometimes, but the feeling of satisfaction was enormous. As an ex-hotelier, I would look after people all the time in the hotels, but then they come and go, and I was like, okay, that was fine, that was nice. But this is a whole different ballgame, and you just get this incredible feeling of satisfaction that you've done a fine job, which is great.
And does that feed into how you've grown the team and inspire the
Yeah,
team? I suppose
very
that's
much so.
an
Yeah.
amazing tool to have, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And we were talking about this earlier on today here in the office that the team here, my team are my second family. I have two children and another half at home, but Noble Event a second family. So anybody who comes on board here with us comes on board as part of the family. You know, we're a very, very tight unit, and we have this level of enthusiasm which is extraordinary, particularly recently where we employed a lot of new members of staff post COVID. We've got a lot of youngsters in the team now, and they're so enthusiastic and they're so excited about being involved in the event industry that it's brilliant. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic for us. An injection of great, you know, humor and empathy, but also a great injection of enthusiasm is I think amazing.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, you mentioned COVID there. You know, as a global business with the office in Dubai and in hospitality and events, what were the lessons you learned during that time?
Not to give up. I think it was very much the survival of the fittest, as I'm sure you can appreciate. You know, running an event management company when there's no events is a little bit challenging, to say the least. We fought very, very, very hard. My two colleagues on the senior management team and myself, just to keep our head above water. And we had to make some pretty awful decisions about you know, cutting heads, which was very, very sad. Family members, of course, you know, so we lost family members, which was really, really difficult for us. But I think if you can get through something like this, you can get through pretty much anything. And because I started the company at the beginning of the recession, of course, I was used to tough times because that's how I started the business. So it was way worse than the recession, let me tell you. But I just feel as though if you hunker down and you're sensible and you can hold your breath and hang on tight, then you can do pretty much anything. And that's exactly what we did do. And we were very, very fortunate that the business came back very quickly. Ironically, in Dubai, a hell of a lot quicker than it did in the UK. So we were very, very fortunate that we had the Dubai operation.
Interesting. And what does I suppose that perspective, you know, with Dubai and Asia, I suppose, or that global perspective, what does that, I suppose, give you in the UK? What can we learn as business owners from that perspective that you have?
I think it's not beyond the wit of man to open up an office in another part of the world. I'm a female, 100% shareholder of this business, and I set up a business on my own. Okay, I had some obviously with support, but as a female business leader, in a country where women didn't lead businesses however many years ago now, 9 years ago now in Dubai nearly. Businesses were run by men. You know, they weren't run by women. So and you went to the bank and they waited for your, you know, for your boss to come in and just trying to be brave enough to say, no, I can do this. I can do this. And I had a business need to do it because I had a client who had a big office in the UK that they then moved to Dubai, and I was contracted to do all of their work. So if I didn't have an office, I figured very, very, very quickly that I wasn't going to keep the contract. And at that time, that contract was 30% of my annual revenue. So it was very important that I was able to keep that contract. So setting up the business in Dubai wasn't an option for me. It was just something I had to be, you know, big enough and brave enough to do. And I think in life, what was the worst that can happen? I had to close the business in Dubai, so we might as well go for it and see how you get on. Yeah. I'm a great believer in that.
Amazing. And the luxury brands that you work with, the attention to detail, I suppose, and everything that's needed. Does that sort of, I suppose it must reflect in the culture of your organization and how you run the business day to day. Would that be true?
Yes, very much so. We instill very much finite attention to detail is very, very much part of our day-to-day operation. We have an expression that there's no "that will do" in my agency. You can't send a document out that hasn't been spell checked, that hasn't been proofread. And there are people here that can write, and there are people here who can't. And there are people that need a bit of help. So sometimes English isn't their first language, so they need to have a bit of support to send things out of the door. It's not a sin to make a mistake in a document. You just have to make sure that you've checked it before it goes out. And if you've take pride in your work, which we obviously do, and we have to because of the level we work at within the luxury sector, it just eventually just becomes a natural part of what you do day to day. So yeah, we very much led by me, of course. You know, I don't like anything that's not absolutely spot on. So, which is, I guess, a thing for me.
Very cool, very cool. So success means different things to different people.
Yeah.
What does success look like for you now, Penny?
Well, if you'd asked me that question before COVID, I probably could have answered it a little more effectively than I can at the moment. I wanted to be known for being an agency that people wanted to work at. There's a job opportunity at Noble Events. Oh, good, I'm going to apply. And I believe genuinely that we have now achieved that goal. I didn't want to be an agency that people didn't want to be part of. I've spent a bit of time recently trying to look at the way we profile the business, and that's with my with my new hat on, with my new CEO hat on. That's very much part of my sort of remit, shall we say, for the future. But it's very important that everybody feels in a business as tight as this one that they are working for an agency that cares, that gives a damn. And I wanted to be known for the person that, as the person who did care about not only her clients but her staff development, staff staff career plans, and training and so on and so forth. So that's success to me, rather than just making a ton of money, which by the way, in this industry is actually quite hard. So yeah.
Amazing. You mentioned about the transition that you've made from that MD to CEO role. I know you've recruited within for that. How that's often one of the key challenges that the business owners will have on their growth journey, is the ability to not quite let go but step up and trust as well. How have you found that process?
It's very new, so I'm still finding my feet, if I'm entirely honest. I'm finding it a little bit weird not having millions of meetings every single day, and you then have to rethink how you structure your day and be sensible about how you structure your day. I'm used to being, my time being, heavy demands on my time all the time, and then suddenly, sort of overnight, I've gone from a situation where it's not some, the demand simply isn't there. So I think it's very much a mindset thing. But I was ready to do it. I knew that at one point I was going to have to think about it, because if you think about the future, I'm not getting any younger. I'm heading towards the the twilight of my career now, and I need to think about the future. We've spent a lot of time employing some really good, solid senior management within the organization who can now run the business day to day. And I said, so I didn't need to do what I was doing. I think that was it was almost a natural progression for me. And moving Sarah into the job was absolutely the right thing to do. She was doing 85% of it anyway, to be perfectly honest. So it was a very easy transition for her. And I think we'll be a better agency for it. So it's to me, it was absolutely the right thing. Timing was spot on.
Brilliant. What do you think the key lessons, or the key lesson that you've learned about running a business would be? If you reflect on the last 15 years or so, Penny, what do you think the key lesson you've learned is?
Never take anything for granted. Be that a client relationship, a supplier relationship, a member of staff that you think is never going to leave. I think you absolutely don't take anything for granted, and that maybe I'm saying that because we've been through COVID, perhaps. But I think you also have to recognise in any business, but particularly in this business, very often, especially in Dubai, you're only as good as your last job. So you have to go out there and with the absolute understanding that you're going to deliver to the best of your ability, so that the client is delighted every single time. Complacency is not an option in this type of work at all. And I think if you start to be complacent, that's the time that you start making mistakes and you start losing grip on the very, very, very tight relationships. And I'm extremely lucky. Some of my client relationships are very, very, very long-standing relationships, and I've worked very hard to keep those for many, many, many years. And I'm not about to lose those relationships. So that's what I try and instill into my team, who are now running these accounts for me, that these were my babies, so you've got to make sure you look after them, please.
There's a lot of business owners at the moment. We spoke about COVID, and there's always something, as we know, that often self-created environment, should we say, that makes running a business hard. But there are nonetheless business owners finding it hard at the moment. From your perspective, Penny, what advice would you give a smaller business owner who's feeling the pressure at the moment? What advice would you give them?
Talk to somebody else that's not necessarily in your business. Talk to other people who run businesses who, I think if sometimes people think, oh, I'm in this industry, nobody will understand because that they work in a different industry. Well, actually, running a business you're running a business. It doesn't really matter whether you're making widgets or selling a service like we do. You're still ostensibly running a business. I have always surrounded myself by people who are as good as me, but preferably better. And that's been a big lesson I learned from an old boss of mine a long time ago. I've always had very, very, very good, solid, incredibly effective financial support in my. I've only ever had 2 FDs in this role, and they've been massively supportive, as has my my right hand woman, as it happens. So it's surrounding yourself by people who you can trust, and who are going to support you through thick and thin, but be able to talk to somebody else if you're feeling that you can't see the wood for the trees. I genuinely think it's a good idea to chat to other people. Problem shared and all that.
Yeah. And the final question I ask everybody, Penny, is what advice would you give 20-year-old Penny?
Don't go and work in the event industry. Actually, ironically, I probably would give myself that the advice of I should have done this a lot sooner than I did. Bearing in mind I'm 59 this year, I would have started my own company a lot sooner had I given myself that advice at age 20. I needed the experience. I needed the experience of working in big agencies, which I got, and I think I probably should have started my own business 5 years earlier than I actually did. I don't think I was ready before that, but I think 5 years earlier would have been a much better position for me now in this where I find myself today.
Yeah. Interesting. Hear that quite a bit, actually. Hear that quite a bit.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Penny, absolute pleasure having you on this episode of the Business Spotlight. Definitely one that we could have spoken a lot longer for. Many thanks for your insight, for your openness and what you shared with everybody today.
Thank you, Matt. It's lovely to meet you, and all the very best, and look forward to catching up with you another time.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And to our viewers, I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Business Spotlight. Many thanks.
Thanks, Matt.